You're not depressed, you're not broken, you're not even sad, really. You're just tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, not the kind that a vacation cures. This is something else entirely. This is the exhaustion of existing when existing no longer feels like living. You wake up, you go through the motions, you smile at the right moments, you answer, "I'm fine," when people ask. And technically, you are fine. You're functional, productive even, but fine is a mask too. Because underneath there's this quiet heaviness, like you're walking through life as an observer instead of a participant. Like the soundtrack of your life has been turned down to a whisper. The music doesn't move you the way it used to. The laughter feels rehearsed. The days blur together. Wake up, work, scroll, sleep, repeat. And here's the thing nobody talks about. You might have everything you're supposed to have. The job, the relationship, the life that looks good on paper. But somewhere along the way, you stopped feeling it, all of it. You're going through the motions of a life that no longer fits. So you ask yourself in the quiet moments, the ones you can't distract yourself from, what's the point? Not in a dramatic way, not as a cry for help, just as an honest question your soul keeps whispering when you're too tired to silence it anymore. If this is you, if you've been nodding along, feeling seen for the first time in a long time, you're not alone. So many of us are walking around in this same fog, this same quiet desperation, wondering if anyone else feels this hollow. Today, we're going to talk about what's really happening, not what you're supposed to feel, not what happiness culture tells you to think, but what's actually going on beneath the surface when you're tired of existing. And I promise you this, what you're experiencing isn't the end, it's the beginning. Let me tell you what this looks like in real life. You flinch at compliments because praise doesn't land anymore. Someone tells you you're doing great, and instead of feeling good, you feel nothing. Or worse, you feel like a fraud, because you know what's happening behind the scenes. The effort it takes just to appear normal, the performance of being okay. You apologize for crying, if you can cry at all anymore, because tears feel like weakness, rest feels like failure, and being vulnerable, that's a luxury you can't afford when the world rewards productivity over peace. You become the person who says yes to everyone but yourself, the helper, the peacemaker, the one who holds it together so others don't have to, and you do it so well that nobody sees you slowly disappearing. Not physically, psychologically, your nervous system is screaming but your mouth keeps saying, "I'm fine." Small talk feels like lifting mountains. Social energy becomes expensive, not because you don't care about people, you care too much. Your heart is heavy not because it's empty, but because it's overflowing with everyone else's emotions, everyone else's needs, everyone else's expectations. And you're tired. God, you're so tired. Here's what's happening beneath all of this. What you're experiencing is called emotional exhaustion. It's not weakness, it's not laziness. It's what happens when your emotional output exceeds your emotional input for too long. When you've been running on empty but nobody noticed because you're still moving. Your mind didn't stop fighting because you're broken. It stopped fighting because you're depleted. There's a difference. Psychologically, your brain has been operating in survival mode for so long that it started shutting down the parts that make life feel vibrant. The curiosity, the excitement, the capacity for joy, not because these things are gone forever, but because your nervous system is trying to conserve energy. It's choosing function over feeling, and here's the part that matters. This isn't a flaw in you. This is deeply, profoundly human. You're not defective, you're not uniquely broken. You're experiencing what happens when a sensitive, thoughtful, empathetic person tries to exist in a world that wasn't built for depth. A world that values doing over being, output over insight, performing over feeling. The exhaustion you're carrying isn't proof that you're weak. It's proof that you've been strong for far too long. And what I'm going to show you today is that this fatigue, this soul-deep tiredness, it's not the end of your story. It's not even the middle. It's the prologue to something you haven't discovered yet. But first, we need to understand what's really happening in your brain. Let me tell you what's really happening inside your brain when you're tired of existing. There's a part of your brain called the default mode network. It's responsible for introspection, self-reflection, those moments when your mind wanders. Under normal circumstances, it helps you process experiences and understand yourself. But when you've been in survival mode for months or years, this network goes into overdrive. It becomes a courtroom where you're both the judge and the defendant, the prosecutor and the witness. You analyze everything. Why you feel this way, whether you're doing enough, if you're even worth the space you take up. It becomes a feedback loop of self-analysis that rarely ends in your favor. And here's what happens next. Your brain's reward system, the part that releases dopamine when you experience something meaningful or pleasurable, starts to slow down. Not because it's broken, but because it's been overstimulated or undernourished for too long. Think of it like a song you've heard too many times. The notes are the same, but the emotion has faded. That's what's happening neurologically. Your capacity for joy isn't gone. It's just muted, dulled by stress, by disappointment, by the sheer weight of carrying too much for too long. Scientists call this anhedonia, the inability to feel pleasure from things that once brought you joy. But here's what most people don't tell you about anhedonia. It's not permanent. It's a signal. Your brain saying, I can't keep doing this. Something has to change. The numbness you're feeling? It's not death, it's hibernation. Your emotional system powering down to protect itself from complete collapse. When your brain can't find meaning or connection, it shifts into what neuroscientists call energy conservation mode. It starts turning off what it deems non-essential. Curiosity, spontaneity, the ability to be surprised by beauty, all the things that make life feel alive. What's left is the bare minimum. Wake up, function, survive, repeat. But you're still here, still moving through the day. So on the outside you look fine. On the inside though, you're experiencing what psychologists call depersonalization, a disconnection from your own reality. Like you're watching your life happen to someone else. And this is where it gets interesting. There's another layer beneath the exhaustion, something deeper than just being tired. It's what Viktor Frankl called existential fatigue, when your soul is exhausted not because life is terrible, but because it lacks direction, because you're moving through routines that no longer align with who you're becoming. You weren't created just to exist. You were created to feel alive within the existence. And when that aliveness fades, when you're just going through the motions, your psyche starts to rebel, quietly at first, then louder. Research published in the Journal of Positive Psychology in 2019 found something remarkable. People who had a consistent sense of purpose, not happiness but purpose, showed lower stress hormones, better emotional regulation, and longer lifespans. Purpose isn't a luxury, it's a psychological need, as fundamental as food or water. And when that need goes unmet, the body doesn't just notice, it responds, with fatigue, with numbness, with the quiet shutdown of everything that makes you feel human. But wait, there's something else happening that you need to know about. Your brain releases a chemical called oxytocin when you engage in authentic human connection. This single hormone can calm your amygdala, the part of your brain responsible for fear and stress. It can literally rewire your nervous system from threat mode back to connection mode. This isn't poetry, this is biology. The opposite of depression isn't happiness, it's connection, connection to people, connection to purpose, connection to something larger than the endless scroll of distraction. So here's where we are. You're not broken. Your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do under prolonged stress and disconnection. It's conserving energy, protecting you from complete burnout by shutting down the parts that feel extra. But here's what your brain doesn't know. You're ready for something different now. You're ready to understand not just what's happening, but why. And once you understand why, you can start to change it. Because the exhaustion you're feeling, It didn't come from nowhere. Let me tell you where this exhaustion really comes from. It starts quietly, so quietly that you don't even notice it's happening. Every time you said, "I'm fine," when you weren't. Every time you smiled instead of screamed. Every time you swallowed your truth to keep the peace. Every time you chose silence over honesty because honesty felt too expensive. All of it adds up. Psychologists call this cumulative fatigue. It's the emotional debt you've been accruing for years without ever making a payment, and eventually the interest becomes unbearable. You didn't choose this consciously. It was survival. In the moment, pretending to be okay was easier than falling apart. But what saved you then is imprisoning you now. The mechanism is simple but devastating. When you suppress emotions repeatedly, your nervous system never gets to complete its stress cycle. The anger, the grief, the fear, it all stays trapped in your body, creating a backlog of unprocessed feelings that eventually manifest as exhaustion. It's like running a computer with 47 tabs open. Eventually, the whole system slows down, not because the computer is broken, but because it's overwhelmed. And here's where culture makes it worse. We live in a world that celebrates the grind, that glorifies busy, that rewards you for doing more, never for being more. You get praised for working overtime, never for resting well. You get applause for pushing through, rarely for slowing down. So you learn to tie your worth to your productivity, to your usefulness, to your ability to keep going even when everything inside you is begging you to stop. Rest became guilt, boundaries became selfishness, and saying no, that became failure. You internalized a belief that's killing you slowly, that your value is measured by your output. The psychology behind this is what researchers call conditional worth. The idea that you're only valuable when you're performing, producing, achieving. That love and belonging are earned through accomplishment rather than inherent in your existence. When you operate from this belief system, rest becomes terrifying, because if you stop, who are you? If you're not useful, are you worth keeping around? But let me tell you something about the people who feel this most deeply. The ones who are most tired of existing are often the ones who feel existence most intensely. You're not numb because you don't care. You're numb because you care too much. You're the empath, the overthinker, the one who notices everything and absorbs everyone else's emotional weather like a sponge. Your heart doesn't just break for yourself, it breaks for the world, for every suffering thing, for every injustice, for every pain you can't fix. And nobody told you how to set boundaries around that kind of sensitivity. This is what psychologists call compassion fatigue. It happens when your capacity for empathy exceeds your capacity for self-care. When you give and give and give until there's nothing left, and then you give some more because stopping feels selfish. The exhaustion isn't a weakness. It's the natural consequence of caring without limits in a world that demands infinite caring. Here's the paradox. Your heart is heavy not because it's empty. It's heavy because it's full of everyone else's problems, everyone else's emotions, everyone else's needs. You became the safe space for others, but forgot to be a safe space for yourself. You carry responsibilities you never asked for, expectations you can't possibly meet, emotions that aren't even yours, and you carry all of this in silence because admitting you're struggling feels like admitting defeat. But can I tell you what's really happening? You're not weak, you're not failing, you're experiencing what happens when a deeply feeling person tries to exist in a shallow world. When someone built for depth is forced to swim in the shallow end, when an artist is told to paint by numbers, the exhaustion you feel isn't random, it's not meaningless. It's your soul's way of saying, this isn't working anymore. We need something different, something real, something true. And the fact that you're hearing that message, the fact that you can't ignore it anymore, that's not the beginning of your breakdown. That's the beginning of your breakthrough. Now I need you to hear this carefully. What you're experiencing right now, this tiredness, this emptiness, this sense that something fundamental is missing, this isn't weakness. This is awakening. Let me explain. Most people go their entire lives never questioning the script they've been handed. They wake up, play their role, follow the rules, and never once ask, is this actually what I want? Or is this what I've been conditioned to want? But you can't ignore those questions anymore. And that's not a flaw, that's depth. There's a concept in psychology called existential awareness. It's what happens when your mind starts confronting the raw truth. That life doesn't come with built-in meaning, that we create meaning, that the routines and roles and identities we've been performing might not actually align with who we're becoming. When you've been on autopilot for too long, your brain quietly starts asking, why? Not as a sign of giving up, but as a sign of waking up. The people most tired of existing are often the ones with the greatest potential for depth, because you see through the illusions now, the performance of happiness, the shallow metrics of success, the empty calories of distraction. You can't self-medicate with the things that used to work because your soul is demanding something real. And that's terrifying, but it's also sacred. You're not breaking down, you're breaking through the conditioning, through the lies, through the version of yourself that survived but never thrived. Philosopher Alan Watts said something profound. The meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and so obvious and so simple, yet everyone rushes around in a panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. What if the exhaustion you feel is your soul's rebellion against a life spent achieving instead of being, against performing instead of feeling, against the constant rush toward more, better, bigger, when all you really want is to feel alive in the moments you already have? Here's what nobody tells you about this kind of fatigue. It's an invitation. Think about it. What if the silence you've been running from isn't your enemy? What if it's actually calling you home? What if the emptiness isn't a void but a clearing, a space where something new can finally grow? When you stop running from the exhaustion and actually sit with it, when you ask it, what are you trying to tell me? That's when something inside you begins to shift. Psychologically, this is what's called meaning making. It's the process of taking your experience, even the painful parts, and extracting wisdom from it, purpose from it, direction from it. Viktor Frankl, who survived Auschwitz, wrote, "When a person can't find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure. But what happens when even pleasure stops working? When the distractions lose their power, that's when you have no choice but to turn inward, to confront yourself, to ask the hard questions. And here's what I need you to understand. You are not your fatigue, you are the awareness behind it, the consciousness observing it, the soul experiencing it. When you can name what you're feeling, when you can say, this is emotional exhaustion, or this is existential fatigue, or this is the weight of living out of alignment, something powerful happens. You begin to separate yourself from it, and when you separate from it, it loses some of its power over you. You're not the storm, you're the sky watching the storm pass through. So let me ask you something. If this isn't living, what is it? And if you know this isn't how you want to spend the rest of your life, what does that tell you? It tells you that somewhere deep inside, beneath the exhaustion and the numbness and the fog, there's still a part of you that remembers what it feels like to be alive. A part that hasn't given up, a part that's waiting for permission, waiting for a sign, waiting for you to finally say, I'm done existing, I'm ready to live. And if you're feeling that pull right now, even faintly, even through the fatigue, that's your answer. You're ready for what comes next. Now you understand what's been happening. You understand that your brain has been rewired by stress, that your exhaustion is cumulative, not sudden, that the numbness is protection, not permanent, that the meaning crisis isn't a breakdown, it's a breakthrough trying to happen. So the question becomes, what now? How do you move from existing to living, from surviving to thriving, from performing to feeling? Let me show you. First, you need to understand something fundamental about healing. The opposite of depression isn't happiness, it's connection. Remember that oxytocin we talked about? The hormone that calms your fear-based amygdala and rewires your nervous system back to safety. Your brain releases it when you experience authentic human connection, not surface-level small talk, not performative relationships, real connection. The kind where you can show up as you are, tired, uncertain, messy, and be met with acceptance instead of advice. Neuroscience research from Andrew Huberman's lab shows that your brain finds reward not in the destination, but in the pursuit that aligns with personal meaning. Dopamine, the chemical of motivation, spikes not when you achieve something external, but when your actions move you towards something that matters to you personally. This is why external rewards fade so quickly. The promotion, the validation, the achievement. They give you a temporary hit, but they don't sustain you. Purpose sustains you. Alignment sustains you. Meaning sustains you. So here's where healing actually begins, not in some grand epiphany, not in a dramatic life overhaul, but in small, honest moments of reconnection. It starts when you reconnect with people, not to perform for them, but to be real with them. When you call someone you've lost touch with and say, "I've been struggling," instead of "I'm fine." It starts when you reconnect with nature, when you take a walk without your phone and actually notice the sky, the trees, the sound of wind, the architecture of being alive. It starts when you reconnect with silence, when you stop filling every empty moment with noise and distraction and actually let yourself feel what you're feeling. Studies in positive psychology have found that people who regularly experience awe, moments of wonder that transcend their usual perspective, report higher life satisfaction and lower rates of burnout. Awe doesn't require grand experiences. It can be as simple as watching the stars, listening to music that moves you, writing a letter to your younger self, reading poetry that captures something you felt but couldn't name, or reconnects you to the experience of existence itself. It reminds your nervous system, "Oh, this is what it feels like to be alive." But here's what matters most. You have to start small. Not because small is all you can do, but because your nervous system needs to rebuild trust. Trust that rest is safe, that feeling is safe, that slowing down won't cause everything to collapse. You don't heal exhaustion by pushing harder. You heal it by learning to listen. Listen to what drains you. Listen to what nourishes you. Listen to the quiet voice underneath the performance that's been trying to tell you something for years. This isn't laziness. This is recalibration. You're teaching your brain that alignment matters more than achievement, that being matters more than doing, that you don't have to earn the right to exist. You already have it simply by being here. Here's the practice that changes everything. Every day, make one small choice that tells your mind, "I still matter. I still exist. My inner world still counts." Maybe it's saying no to something that depletes you. Maybe it's saying yes to something that nourishes you. Maybe it's letting yourself cry without apologizing. Maybe it's asking for help without feeling guilty. One choice, one moment of honesty. That's how you rebuild meaning, not in massive transformations, but in micro moments of alignment, in tiny acts of self-honoring, in the courage to choose truth over performance, even when truth is uncomfortable. You've been strong for so long. You've held it together for everyone else. You've survived when survival felt impossible. But survival isn't the same as living. And what I'm about to tell you might be the most important thing you hear today. You're allowed to want more than survival. You're allowed to want a life that feels alive. You're allowed to stop performing and start feeling. You're allowed to come home to yourself. Let me paint you a picture of what's possible. One day, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next week, but one day, you're going to wake up and notice something different. The morning light will filter through your window the same way it always has. The air will smell the same. The world outside will be unchanged. But something inside you will have shifted. You'll take a breath, and for the first time in longer than you can remember, it won't feel like work. It won't feel like you're trying to convince yourself to stay. It will just feel like breathing. and you'll realize this is what it feels like to be alive again. Not dramatically, not all at once, but quietly, gently, like a season changing so gradually you don't notice until suddenly the leaves are different colors and you can't remember exactly when it happened. The music will start to land again. Not every song, but some. The ones that speak to the part of you that's been sleeping. And when they do, you'll feel it. Not just hear it, feel it. You'll laugh and it won't sound rehearsed. It will surprise you, this sound coming from your chest that you'd almost forgotten you could make. You'll connect with someone, really connect, and you won't feel exhausted afterward. You'll feel held, seen, human. This is the quiet miracle nobody tells you about. It doesn't announce itself with trumpets. It doesn't come with a certificate of completion. It arrives in the small moments you've stopped noticing because you've been too tired to pay attention. It's the moment you realize you went an entire hour without wondering, what's the point? It's the morning you wake up with something that almost feels like anticipation. It's the realization that somewhere along the way, you stopped performing and started feeling. You stopped existing and started living. And here's what you need to understand about this transformation. You didn't become someone new. You became yourself again. The version of you that existed before the exhaustion, before the performance, before you learned that rest was failure and boundaries were selfishness. You came home, not to a place, but to yourself, to the part of you that never left, but had been buried under years of I'm fine, and I can handle it, and I don't need help. That part of you, it's been waiting, patiently, quietly, through every numb day and every meaningless routine and every moment you wondered if you'd ever feel anything again. It's been waiting for you to remember. Being tired of existing isn't the end of your story. It's not even the middle. It's the uncomfortable, necessary beginning of living differently, of living honestly, of living aligned, of living in a way that honors the depth and sensitivity and profound humanity that makes you who you are. You never had a childhood where it was safe to be fully yourself. You never had permission to be tired without guilt or to rest without shame. But you have that permission now, not from me, from yourself. So here's what I want you to remember when the exhaustion tries to convince you that nothing will ever change. Your fatigue is not a flaw, it's a compass. It's been pointing you toward truth this entire time, toward alignment, toward a version of life that actually fits who you're becoming. The fact that you can't keep performing, that's not weakness, that's wisdom. The fact that you're questioning everything, that's not breaking, that's breaking free. And the quiet revolution happening inside you right now, the one where you're choosing to feel instead of perform, to be instead of achieve, to live instead of just exist. That revolution is going to change everything. You just have to give it time. If this video found you at the right time, if something in these words felt like they were written for you, leave one word in the comments describing how you feel right now. Just one word. No explanation needed, because when you name what you're feeling, you begin to separate from it. And when we all name it together, we remember we're not alone in this. If you know someone who needs to hear this, someone who's been pretending they're fine when they're not, share this with them. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is show someone else that what they're experiencing has a name, and that there's a way through. Next week, we're diving into how to rebuild meaning when everything feels pointless. How to find purpose not in achievement, but in alignment. Until then, be gentle with yourself. You're not broken. You're not behind. You're exactly where you need to be. You're waking up.